Welcome to the desert. My name is Kent Fichter. The desert is an incredible place to be still and know that He is God. We never know when it will be our last day on this planet. On July 18th, 2023, I was around 30 minutes from dying in the desert. On that day, I took a short trip on our cart SUV to the mountains. I had water and the cart was covered, so I was protected from the sun. After a brief time enjoying the mountains, I left for home. I was on a desert trail that I knew quite well. I veered off that trail and soon was stuck in sand. Not a problem. I have been stuck in snow many times in my lifetime. Why would sand be any different? Well, it is. I worked for around 45 minutes to free up the cart. It was quickly getting very hot. I was out of water and was becoming fatigued. Time for prayer. I prayed, scooped sand away from the tires and under the cart. A few minutes later, I was at a stopping point. I was stuck. I prayed, God, you have answered so many of my prayers for years. Please, I need a miracle. So I made another attempt to move the cart. No success. I heard a still small voice call 911. I did. The two dispatchers were excellent in their work. They kept me calm. A few minutes passed, and I was asked if I heard sirens. I said no. They were having a problem finding my location. I was close to passing out. One of the dispatchers said a drone was now looking for me. It picked up my cell phone location. Soon, I heard the sirens and saw the flashing lights. The EMS arrived. IV needles were stuck into my arms and water poured on my head and into my mouth. I was soon transported to a level 1 trauma center. If God answers my prayer the way I wanted Him to, I would have been home, showered, hydrated, in air-conditioned comfort, and planning the rest of my day. Instead, I was in an ambulance. Prayer is a mystery. There will be times when you pray your heart out and you see the exact opposite of what you pray for. That hurts. It can bring doubts, anger at God, and other negative thoughts and emotions. Or we can be still, know He's God, and trust Him, and ask Him what He wants us to learn in the midst of unanswered prayer. Please stop and think about that. I texted my wife, Deb, that I was okay, but I was on my way to the hospital. I briefly explained why. After arriving at the trauma center, I had more IVs inserted. I was hooked to monitors and asked questions. I was told my heart was stressed and I was to be kept overnight. So there I was in a level 1 trauma emergency room, IVs, hooked up to a monitor, sand behind my ears with filthy clothes on. Not how I, Kent Fichter, wanted my prayer answered. Would it not be better to tell others how God rescued me out of the dangerous situation in the desert? A nurse was keeping a watchful eye on me. She shared her journey as a nurse working through COVID, and as we were getting to know each other, she voiced that her life was complicated. My wife, Deb, put out prayer requests for me. Mike Chan, my pastor and friend, texted me that he would come up to see me, and I said, Mike, don't worry about it, I'm fine. But he said that he'd been asked recently to visit a very sick lady that just happened to be in the same hospital. So he figured it'd be a good time to come up, visit me, and visit this lady. Made sense to Mike. It was good timing. Keep this in mind. There is an emergency hospital about 10 minutes from where I was rescued in the desert. Why did the EMS guys take me down the busy, crazy, hectic freeway, it's called the 10 here in Phoenix, to another EMS facility, a much farther trip? Remember, God is sovereign. He's in complete control of everything in the whole universe. He's in control of your universe. He, not man, chose which hospital I was to be delivered to. Deb and Mike showed up at the same time. It was a comfort to see them. I introduced them to my nurse. The four of us chatted, and Mike asked the nurse this question: "May I pray for you?" There was a pause. She said yes. As Mike prayed for this precious nurse who shared with me just a few minutes earlier that her life was complicated, a peace filled that emergency room. The nurse left the room, and Deb and I prayed for Mike as he was leaving to visit the precious unknown sick lady. This is a snapshot of his visit. Mike said he could sense the odor of death as he entered her room. He would know. He's a former cop and fireman. He has seen and experienced things I personally would not want to. This precious soul could only communicate by blinking her eyes. Mike lovingly asked her if she wanted peace in her life, if she wanted Jesus. He didn't pressure her. He simply asked her to blink her eyes if she wanted peace with the Lord. She blinked, yes, and a tear ran down her cheek. Soon after this supernatural encounter, I received a text message about it. My nurse and another nurse entered my room. I shared the story with them. The nurses exited my room, and I was by myself. Light bulbs went on in my head. What appeared to be an unanswered prayer in the desert was used by God to advance His kingdom. God wanted me in a level 1 trauma center. He rescued me from the desert His way. My nurse, who may have been in her own personal deep dark night of the soul, was prayed for. And that same night, she heard the story of another lady in her midnight hour on this planet coming to Jesus. Pastor Mike does not make the trip to the hospital to pray with this lady on death's door if I'm not in the hospital. You see, this is how Jesus works. He works in His own miraculous ways. I pray that God's Spirit will speak to you what He wants you to learn from what we call unanswered prayer. Prayer is a mystery. What can you do through the course of the day more powerful and important than pray? Jesus said in Luke 18:1, "Pray always and don't lose heart." He knew that there would be times in our journey, our life's journey, that we would become discouraged in prayer. Sometimes doubts take over, sometimes fear takes over, thinking we're not good enough to pray, angry at God for unanswered prayer in the past. Just know this, that there's never been a prayer that you have prayed that the Lord hasn't answered. And in the midst of unanswered prayer, if we could just learn to quiet our hearts, listen and be still, your unanswered prayer may advance God's kingdom. It's His kingdom we pray for, not ours. I was informed that another 30 minutes in the desert I may have died. God knew that, yet He had a plan much times eternity better than what I prayed for while in the desert. Blessings on you, and I just pray that this testimony would be an encouragement for you on your own personal journey.